Hello and welcome. I'm Gohar Raza and you are watching Eureka. The continental drift in billions of years created Himalayas out of an ocean. An ocean got converted into the great Himalayas that we know of. There was a person called Dr. Wadia who was in love with mountains. He created a beautiful museum, kept on collecting evidence of whatever has happened to create Himalayas, refuted many theories and confirmed a large number of theories about continental drift. This beautiful collection was converted into an institute, today known as Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. We have a special guest today. Welcome, Dr. Anil Gupta.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us so much of time.
My pleasure.
Today you are director of this fascinating, wonderful institute. When you look back at personalities like Wadia and occupy this chair, how do you feel being a geologist? Because he was a great geologist, paleontologist.
I feel honored and inspired because Dr. Wadia was the doyen of Indian geoscience, or the first fellow Royal Society of London in our science community. He was originally an English teacher. Then he took his field of interest to geosciences, and he was the man instrumental in establishing several institutions in the country, not only Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. So Himalaya,
but his
you know,
personal collection was given to
yes,
your institute.
Yes, we have a Wadia gallery in our museum. I think
it's fascinating. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I think we have the best geoscience museum in the country, and we have renovated very recently. It is not only housing collections.
I'd love to go and see it.
Yeah, you're welcome always. I think it is on the tourism map of the country. The students and people come to our institute and visit this museum almost every
Anybody
day.
who has not seen that museum has not seen something.
Yeah.
I think one should go and see that museum, and especially that rock which has a drop of water.
Right.
That is completely fascinating.
Yeah, so that is one attraction of the museum. Then we have dinosaurian remains and remains of the elephant. We have one of the biggest tusks of an elephant. And then, of course, the field gadgets used by Dr. Wadia, we have kept in the Wadia Gallery for display.
This institute and his personality has inspired a very large number of young people over a period of time. It's a long period of time. Generations after generations were inspired by his work, and geologists kept on working in this area. Especially when you talk about paleontology or paleooceanography, why is it necessary to study these areas?
You know, oceans and continents, these are the two major components of our Earth, and you have enormous information lying below these two sectors of the globe. Understanding paleoceanography is important because you would like to know how the oceans were in the past, in fact, what type of life these housed in the past, and what were the other parameters that these oceans were having in the past, and
how it's changing.
How these are changing, yeah. So the geometry of the oceans with respect to the land, how the continents are being created, in fact, the mountains are coming up. So to know about what we see today in existence on Earth, we need to look at what has happened in the past.
And without knowing that, you cannot predict what is going to happen in the future.
Yeah, that is true.
And today it has become extremely important to study these parameters because of climate change. what
Yes.
is happening naturally to the world that has to be segregated in order to see what anthropogenic activity is does it have any impact on the climate?
The abrupt changes have happened in the past. It is not that these are happening right now, and these are new, not new phenomena. If you look at the last, say, several thousands of years of history of our climate of the Earth, using ice cores from both Arctic and Antarctic region as well as ocean bottom cores, you'll see there have been very abrupt changes in the past. We call them Heinrich events or Dansgaard-Oeschger cycles. But the frequency of those events were at particular intervals, and we believe that these were related to more to the Earth's parameters, like astronomical parameters of our Earth. But what we see over the last, say, a few thousand years, or say, since the intervention of the human beings with the climate of the Earth, the frequency of the extreme events, especially at a smaller time scales, has gone up, in fact. And there are both views. In fact, some people believe that the anthropogenic activity does contribute. Model results also say, but there is a group of people, they say no, human activities have not contributed any, to damaging the climate of the Earth. But I personally believe that the human activities, especially the after the Industrial Revolution, has certainly contributed to change,
the change of the climate and global warming. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. Professor Anil Gupta, we were discussing that how the natural changes that occur influence the world climate as well as the life that it sustains. Your study has been extremely fascinating as far as I'm concerned, that you have related the monsoon pattern over a long period of time to, on the one hand, solar activities, especially the solar radiation, and on the other hand, the rise in the size and height of Himalayas. It is completely fascinating. How did you get this idea that it should be related?
Yeah, in climate, monsoon is a component of the global climate. It is basically a tropical phenomenon.
One of the most fascinating phenomena.
Yeah, I would say one of the most fascinating. Yeah. It is regular. You see every year you have.
On a very large scale.
On a particular date or plus minus, a few days, the monsoon sets in and then it recedes in a particular month. So there are two types of changes in the climate or in the monsoon. One is tectonic time scale. The other one is the astronomical scale time scale, which are very short time scale, maybe few years, say decades to century or millennia. So if you look at the tectonic scale changes in the monsoon, we looked at the history of the Himalaya, how the Himalaya rose. In fact, when did it attain a critical height to allow the monsoon to set in, and we found that the changes that are happening in the oceans, in fact, were related to the height of the Himalaya. In fact, in the beginning, most of the climate modelers and climate workers thought that the height of the Himalaya.
So how old is monsoon, this phenomena?
We believe the monsoon, our recent study shows around 13 million years, but which we have recently published. Earlier, the time goes even up to 30 million years. In fact, some people say 30 million years, some say 20, but we have recently found it was around 13 million years.
So it's as recent as that on tectonic scale.
Tectonic scale, yeah. And then when we come to small scale changes, what we found, we studied last 10,000 years record of monsoon from ocean bottom cores from Western Arabian Sea of Oman margin. And when we studied, we found...
Why was Oman so important?
This is the region where you have maximum impact of the southwest monsoon wind, in fact.
And it almost starts from there, the monsoon.
No, monsoon starts even down, in fact. It starts south of the equator, then hits the Somali Horn, and then moves up In fact, we call it as a fine later jet, in fact.
Right.
So this fine later jet has maximum impact of Oman, where it churns the surface water and develops a phenomenon we call upwelling that brings nutrients to the surface. And these nutrients serve to the as food to the zooplanktons. We use them, fossil shells of the zooplanktons to study.
That is how you establish what happened in the past.
Yeah. So intensity of the wind has a close relation with the population of a particular species we call Globigerina boloides. We studied the population of this species and we found that in the last 10,000, 11,000 years record, there are very abrupt changes happening at particular intervals. Then we looked at the other record from polar regions. In fact, we found in the North Atlantic there was a very well established record of the last 10 or 11,000 years. And we correlated that record with our, and we found that the cold intervals in the North Atlantic were aligned with the dry phases in the monsoon system on millennia time scale. In fact, around 700 to 1,000 years scale, these were happening. And we call them bond cycles in the North Atlantic. And
so you think that the solar activity
I come to that point.
has a very, very deep impact on.
Yeah, then we related sunspot activity, in fact, with this record, and we found that sunspot activity also has a very good match with or alignment with our record. And when we have low
alignment with the abrupt
changes
that have happened
in the monsoon. Yeah. So weak sunspot activity means cold phases and weak summer monsoon.
And you published this paper in Nature.
Nature, yeah. We published in Nature and one in Science in 2002. And
so this research that you did and established the correlation between Himalayan height and correlation between the sunspots, how much time did you take to establish this?
I think it was around a year, 1 year. I worked hard in IIT Kharagpur. I used to go to the department at 7 o'clock in the morning, come back for lunch and then for dinner in the evening. And after dinner, I used to go to the department, work up to 2 o'clock.
And how big was your team? You were alone?
Myself and my few students, we all worked. But for this work, I worked myself, in fact, along with some of my foreign collaborators also.
Did you experience a moment of Eureka when you were working on this and said, yes, I have established it and no one else has done it before?
Yes, there was a National Geographic documentary on my work. In fact, when they learned about my work, they contacted me and then they came to India, to IIT Kharagpur to shoot my work, and I really felt great because it was indigenous work, which I did in India. Something new, which most of our work, when we talk about science, we credit to the West, but it was my own contribution from this country.
Before we go to the inspirations that you have drawn from various people, institutions, and countries, I would like to ask a question that you have also worked on glacial lakes. Now, glacial lakes are fascinating. They form, they burst, they create havoc, and they are extremely beautiful to look at. What is your opinion about glaciers themselves, whether they are depleting as fast as some scientists claim, or some scientists say that they are forming at a very fast pace instead of getting depleted? And why is glacial lake so important for the scientists to study?
Glacial lakes are important for the safety of the society, in fact, because many times if glacial lakes break out, these take a larger shape, they start breaking out and then cause havoc downstream. So for that reason, glacial lakes are very important, especially in areas where you have very large population in the valleys. Okay. And this is true that glacial lakes appear and disappear. So we have initiated a very good program at Wadia Institute. One is glacial lake inventory. We have already completed for the state of Uttarakhand. Now next project we are going to take up in Himachal and then Jammu and Kashmir and then in the northeast. in some areas, the glaciers are melting fast. In other areas, these are advancing. Like if you see in Karakoram region, the glaciers are advancing because you have more westerly influence there. Westerlies bring lots of moisture, and then there some of the glaciers are advancing. But if you look in Himachal or in Uttarakhand, the glaciers are retreating, in fact, with different pace. And our recent study shows that the melting pace has decreased, in fact, in last 3-4 years. The fastest one is the Gangotri glacier. And the other program we have initiated is on earthquake precursory research, and then speleothems. Again, these are very good proxy for understanding the changes in the monsoon precipitation.
I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. Dr. Gupta, we were discussing how important glaciers are for not only sustenance of the Himalayas themselves, but also for the countries that depend on Himalayas. So, the study is also extremely important. You have to continuously observe them. Wadia Institute is a premier institute, no doubt. But do you think that we should be spending so much of money in observing glaciers, looking at the earthquakes and climate and paleontology? Should a poor country like India do it? Will there be a disaster if we don't look at the glaciers?
Yes, glaciers are very important for the sustenance of life, because ours is an agriculture-based economy. And if you see, all major perennial rivers originate in the Himalayas, whether it is Indus or Brahmaputra or Ganga, Yamuna, and their tributaries. And if you want them to be perennial, flowing throughout the year, that is Avaral and Nirmal Dhara of these rivers.
Are you saying in simple terms that if glaciers are gone, Ma Ganga is gone?
Yes. So glaciers need to be have to be there if we really want to have these rivers flowing throughout the year. About earthquake study, these are important because of the type of damage these incur on the human societies, in fact, establishments. So the study of study of earthquakes is also quite important.
And your colleagues and you are trying to generate data that can predict both the melting of glaciers or recession in glaciers or advancement of glaciers, which can again cause havoc. Advancement is not always good. And the earthquakes and environmental changes.
Yes, we are, generating data and trying to see what is going to be the trend in glacier melt in near future. This is one aspect. Earthquake research, we are far behind because so far we do not have any system in place that can predict earthquake to save the human lives or establishments.
But Wadia Institute is responsible for monitoring earthquakes.
Yeah, we are still in the learning stage.
You have achieved what you have achieved and have got international recognition. When you look back at the journey, do you give credit to Aligarh Muslim University, Banaras Hindu University, or you give credit to your going to United States of America and Japan, which sustained your interest in science?
I'll give credit to both AMU as well as BHU, because in AMU I learned discipline, in fact, and how you live life. And in BHU I learned more about the science and education. So both institutions shaped, in fact, my life, or helped me in shaping my life.
When did you decide to join scientific stream? Because that was the most difficult thing to get educated in. You could have gone to any other stream.
There was no person, in fact, to guide us. My parents were uneducated, they never went to school, in fact. So my cousin was studying in Aligarh Muslim University that time, after having his intermediate from Moradabad, Parker College. And when he gave me an idea that geology is a new field, in fact, that was not known to many of us, he said, why don't you come to Aligarh and take admission? So I applied there myself and then got admission. That was the biggest moment in my life. And
But at that time, geology was not considered to be the real area to get educated. Physics, chemistry, mathematics, becoming engineer, becoming...
yes, geology was not considered a mainstream science. Still, it is not considered a mainstream science. But that is very unfortunate. But if you see the contribution of geoscience to the development of a nation is great, in fact. Every branch has its own beauty or negative point, but geoscience does have a very, I would say you learn a lot of things about what is there on earth, what is hidden below the earth.
You come from a family where you had to go and sell vegetables and produce, etc., etc. That never interested you.
Yes, I had, because I belong to a farmer come business family, so farming was very dear to me. In fact, I used to go to the field. My parents, after coming from the school, they will tell me go to the field and work with the...
Normally, these days, parents will say, sit down and finish off your homework.
No, it was not actually. It was other way. I wanted to study, but they used to say, go and see how these casual laborers are working in the field. And I
supervise them.
Yeah, I used to go and work there, and also I used to sell vegetables in the market and other produce of our land.
And there was hardly any electricity. School didn't have any science lab.
We hardly used to see electricity in a week. Maybe one day we will see for 2-3 hours or 3 hours. So we studied in lamp and these candles. There was no proper even health services in the town. In the village, it was a very small town, a village level town.
Are you now completely cut off from the village? And
no, I do visit every year. I go there and mix with the people and know how difficult the life is in villages and small towns.
How important was it for you to go to United States of America and other countries and learn? And why did you come back? These are the two questions which bother me.
It was important because if you really want to sharpen your ideas, you need to have international exposure. Because when I visited USA or Japan, our economy was not that strong. We did not have the equipment to do that type of cutting edge research.
Today we have?
Today we have. Our economy has gone up. If you see over the last, say, 25 years or 30 years, we are, now we can say we are going to be an advanced country in the near future. So we have all like in our institute, we have all the facilities you can do cutting edge research under one roof.
But a lot of people are saying that we are cutting down on science and technology, the expenditure. We should be increasing if we have to compete with China. Our expenditure has been stagnated.
Our expenditure on science and research is not that much, because our total expenditure is around less than 1% of our GDP, which if you look at China, it is more than 2%, in fact. So this is true, but the government is trying to provide funds for research, and I personally feel if you have a passion to do research, you will not find fault in funding. Rather, you will try to do something good even with the limited funds. You look at what our earlier scientists like Sir C.V. Raman and other big scientists did in this country without any money and without any good lab facilities, and they did wonderful research or Meghnad Saha or Sir J.C. Bose.
You are yourself doing wonderful research. Anyway, would you like to sign off by giving a message to younger generation?
My answer to your other question, that why I came back from USA, I wanted to serve this nation, because if we all stay there in the US, who is going to serve to this nation? So that was the reason that I wanted to come and serve to this.
The answer is very inspirational for younger generation, but would you like to give a message to younger generation?
I think hard work pays. Always you work for the success of the development of the nation with passion and discipline.
Hard work pays. That is all for today. May I, on your behalf, promise our viewers that you will be happy to answer questions if they have any?
Sure.
Write to us if you have any question. Our email address is eureka@rstv@gmail.com. Thank you for giving so much of time to us.
Thank you so much.